Hey guys, welcome back to the Time Bomb channel here in 2022. Happy New Year to you all. I hope things are as sane and healthy as in your part of the world as is possible, and that this year brings an element of normality indeed for us all. In for review today, we've got this rather nice limited edition from Orient. As I unbox it, I'll reference the fact that it's called the Kano, the Big Wave, but more on that later. The brand is obviously one that most of you are going to know really very, very well. And yes, I confessed some time back I owned a Bambino, but I do feel like I rather fell for the hype surrounding them. As personally for me, in hand, the watch didn't feel great. It was a little bit on the light sort of light side. It didn't inspire confidence, and in addition to which, a little shake and the rotor was very, very noisy. It lacked a bit of soul, and as a consequence, I've kind of not been back to Orient in a while. The Kamasu, this last year or so has had everyone very, very excited for a while. Personally, I find the dial and the bezel a little bit fussy. I think that the Kano is much smoother. I've also handled a Kamasu, and I felt that the bezel was a little bit dodgy. But I understand and I recognise that the smaller size of the Kamasu is going to make it a preferable option for many people. Plus, I think now with the new Kamasus, which are out with those new colourways, it's now making the older ones really very, very, very affordable indeed. And it's hard, if you're not into Orient watches, not to have at least one or two of those in your collection. But anyway, enough of that, enough of my rambling. Let's focus on our watch for today. And here we have, as I say, is the limited edition Big Wave. Now, I'll just pop it up on screen because I did have to chuckle at this. According to the Orient website, curiously, the design concept, the Big Wave, evokes a dramatic wave rolling up with hints of foam. And then I look back at the watch and I'm like, come again? Personally, I'm seeing more ping pong balls and polar bears here. But anyway, that's probably just me. One second while I refocus the camera. All right, so these are an Asia-only release, but I picked this one up from TUS, TUS watches here in the UK, and just for reference purposes, they do love their bizarre number references. RA-AA0918S19B. Anyway, enough said about that one. I think TUS have just one more in stock on the website. They only made 1,010 or 1010 pieces of these. I'm not quite sure of the significance of that number. But it does make it slightly more exclusive than, say, Seiko's 8,000 pieces of limited edition. This particular one, probably not going to be able to see it that well, is number 434 out of 1010. So I am going to denude the plastics because several comments have suggested that, it's kind of silly to show watches without doing that. So I'll ramble on for 30 seconds longer and then I'll pause and denude. I just wanted to say that on first glance, to me, and maybe it's just my eyes, but it strikes me as being a little bit of Tudor, maybe Black Bay DNA squeezed into this design. Maybe that's just my eyes. So as soon as I've denuded, we can then focus on the invariables where my eyes don't come into it. All right, so back to the watch then. So basically, we're looking at just under 44. I think it's something like 43.6 mils across, and that is, of course, then without the crown here. It sits on a wrist presence then of 50 mils north to south and is 12.9 mils in depth. So that's quite a positive wrist space, which I understand will have many, many of you dashing off to grab your 36 mils in haste, and I'm sorry about that. But to me, those dimensions work particularly well for this watch. Let me just throw it on wrist so you can see what I'm talking about. Just for reference purposes, today we're rocking the Kuroburi. Not really a direct comparison between the two watches, but yeah, divers away. Okay, so there we go. Now I've not sized it up, as you'll have seen. It's fresh brand new out of the packet. But I think I'm going to zoom the camera out a little bit. You get a better view of it. I think those specs, that size of the watch on wrist, is fantastic. My wrist is 7.25. I think it sits really very, very well. End links just drop down and hug that wrist very, very, very nicely. But I think more importantly, I think that those dimensions allow for the dial and the watch itself to be far more clearer, much less cluttered, and just more balanced, symmetrical. I think it's really, really, really clean design. And I think if they made it any smaller, it might have been bordering on being a little bit claustrophobic and, you know, sort of jammed, all too much jammed into a much smaller space. Which, as I say, personally, I think it works just fine as it is. I think as well that it then allows space on the dial. As obviously you've only got baton markers with those doubles at the 12. I think it just allows just that space within the dial, you know, to make that purposeful and clear. It does obviously then come with 200 meters worth of watery goodness, and another thing which is going to annoy some people, even on the limited edition, they didn't change this up. Yes, it comes with a mineral crystal up top. It is slightly, you know, fractionally recessed to protect it, but yeah, a little bit of a downside to the watch in that sense. Our crown over here is a screw down, and you can just about see, I think there must be a laser etched design on there. I quite like the crown because it's a good size, easy to grip, very, very positive, pops out here. You've got a slight wiggle as it engages, but once moving, absolutely fine. Second position as well gives us our quick set date, our wind. It is hand hacking as well, excuse me. Then featuring their in-house movement, which, if I remember correctly, is I've lost the number. Where's the number gone? Oh, I can't. Where's it gone? 1 second. Yeah, found it. So it's Orient's own F6922 movement, as I mentioned before. So hacking and winding, and that should give you around 40 hours of power reserve. And the re-engagement there, it's a really affirmative sound as you re-engage. You can really hear it screwing back in. So yeah, very, very clear. Up top, we have a 120 click unidirectional bezel. I really like that soft matte black aluminium insert here. But bizarrely, and I say really bizarrely and quite frustratingly, as you can see immediately, there is no lume pip on that bezel, meaning of course that, yeah, in the dark you can't see anything. I just feel that's such an amateurish mistake or omission. You know, shame on them for doing that. The interesting thing that I found is that the bezel action is really very, 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 very stiff indeed. Now, clearly this may loosen up with age, but at the moment, as I say, it's one of the most positive or resistant bezel actions that I've seen in quite some time. Do bear in mind also that it's quite a low profile bezel with that's a little bit of a coin edge, so definitely could be slippery when wet. As I was referencing the lume and the omission of that lume pip, here's the lume shot. I mean, a very, very positive green, and I think there's certainly enough lume there to keep all of us lume junkies glowing equally positively. Coming back to that movement again, there's another thing I wanted to reference is that it's one that's seen in most of their dive series, and the general feedback is that it can be a little bit hit and miss. Most people either absolutely love the movement, say it's more accurate than the NH35s, or others say it can be really hit and miss depending on the watch. So I'm not able to offer any additional feedback from my perspective. The stock bracelet is a stock bracelet, and unfortunately it has unsolid, there's left a little bit of plastic on there, it has unsolid end links, very frustratingly, and this plastic's stuck right through to the inside. Yeah, it's off now. So yes, a bit of a frustration, I think, with these watches. Might be reflective of price. And then, of course, I mean, nice clasp here, which is then, you know, embossed, but then again let down by your very standard basic clasp, press clasp action here, which is, as I say, really quite frustrating because you've got some nice micro adjusts. Your clip down here. I think everything else there works well. I mean, the bracelet itself, it's quite weighty. It's quite nice. The finishing on it, I think, is positive. I just think, you know, sort those end links out. It's really not a positive aspect, a finishing aspect to the watch. If this was me, I'm thinking that automatically I'd drop that bracelet off, and I'd throw this onto a black dive rubber strap, a Tropic or a Waffle, for example. I think would really allow that white dial to pop even more. Yeah, personal perspective. And as you can see, though, it's not actually that white. Depending on the light, it comes up silver, almost like a little bit pearlescence to it as well. Standouts on the dial, you probably picked up on then over here is our date window. It's kind of semi-framed or sandwiched framed, quite unique in the sense that certainly don't see many other window frames like that, which is interesting. On the hour hand, you've just got that slight little additional pointy bit to give you some differentiation there as well, to make sure you know that you're looking at the hour hand in the loom. Also notice as well, for legibility purposes, that there's three colors here. So there's the color of the dial, there's the color of the hour markers, and then there's a different color for the hour hands, and so the hour and minute hands. Now, automatically, I would assume that that there would be similarity between those, but they've made them a slightly different shade of color. And as I referenced before, outside, as you can see in the sunshine here, it catches the sun, almost reverts to like a champagne color. Quite an interesting dial. What drew me to this version of the Kano, because there's several of them around in lots of different colorways. I think the first thing is that I find it to be uber legible, and I think this kind of ice cool white ice fun is brilliant. It really did tickle me in those tickly bits. I've never really owned a white dial watch before. I don't think Saddam over here really counts as being as a white dial watch. I've always gone for darker colours on the dials. Added to that, I think that the Kano is a real value package that is offering something that's both vintage and sporty. I think that price point is really very interesting. Not quite sure how much rough and tumble these things can take, not having owned one for several years to be able to offer that feedback. And then you've got the Makos, the Kamasus, the Tritons, all of the other ones, though, could really quite make your choice a difficult one as to which one you end up with. But anyway, so that's little 360 there. Let us know what you think down below, guys. I really quite like this. I think they're offering something slightly different here. Yeah, it does have a couple of minor flaws in it, as I say, the crystal end links, etc. But I think it's also got enough win points to it that, yeah, it gets a thumbs up from us. All right, so thanks as always for your time and for your view. Hopefully in 2022 here we'll be bringing you some nice interesting watches for your delectation. And of course, until the next video, this is your host, the Bombardier, signing off. Cheers, guys.